Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Thank you for your time coming over and just listening to us. We want to talk about basically Immersive Technology Studios and about our journey here in ExxonMobil. We're an internal organization inside ExxonMobil, specifically the IT group. Introduce myself. My name is Athicha Dhanormchitphong. When the company, everybody calls me M. It's, my friends do so if you want to call me, just please call me M. It'll make your life a lot easier. I'm from Thailand. I've got tones in my language, so saying the same word in different tones actually means different things. My wife actually called my mom a dog and a horse before. Kyle,
my name's Kyle Daughtry. So I don't have a crazy name like that. Kyle's pretty easy and standard. So I'm the Immersive Technology Studios system architect. Really, what ultimately this means is that I'm looking out from 0 to 2 years, and M is looking out from 2 years and beyond within the space of immersive. And we'll explain everything about all of that, what that means, a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks for covering that. I forgot to introduce the current role as Immersive Technology Architect. Two different organizations. I'm on the R&D side, but we're pretty synced up most of the time. I want to make sure they're always aligned, constant communications, and make sure we're always meeting the business needs. But that really, in one sentence, describes what our group's passion, basically. We're a group of passionate folks pushing the boundaries of multiple realities for the sake of good. Multiple realities, we're not just talking about virtual reality, augmented, right? We want to get to hyper reality eventually because we feel like the deeper level of immersion is going to really improve memory retention and recall to the max. So the folks that are passionate, we've got folks working for us that are willing to commute. We're based in Houston, but we've got folks willing to commute from Austin as well as Dallas here to come over to work for us. They're in the gaming and the movie industry, and so they believe that some of the work that they've been doing are going to help us save a life ultimately. So.
Yeah, so it's not really just all about talk. Really, we mean it. We're trying to actually save a person's life every day that we go into work, and we see massive potential within the space of immersive. And we'll talk a little bit about what we've done so far within there. There's a big spectrum about what we're trying to do from the next generation field worker. There's a lot that actually, if you saw Eric's talk yesterday, and then he'll talk a little bit more about it today. But we really want to focus in on the knowledge and learning and design aspects of this around how do we actually equip those workers with knowledge that they need to actually be successful in the field prior to going out to the field, whether that's from design or that's from training and simulation. And we'll show some pictures and go over some of those things again, like we were talking about, of what that means.
We want to show you videos, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that, But
hopefully, in the near future, we'll show videos.
Yeah. So, right here, that's the 3 business demands, really, right? And that's what we've been focusing on. We've got learning. I think you guys know about that, right? Learning-based simulations. We're hoping to drive efficiencies for job-critical learning. For collaboration, we're using tools to explore geofield sites remotely. So basically, just remote field schools, as well as visualizing subsurface data. And then we actually don't have that in there, but we're also looking to social collaboration platforms as well. For design, we're looking, I think you guys know about that, but design reviews, in this case, for plant and facilities for capital projects. So this is pretty busy, but I do want to share about it. It's got the hard and soft benefits, and I think you guys know most of them. But we can touch on it real quick, right? So for design, we've seen a reduce in development time, cost, materials, speed to market, and even a reduced on construction errors. The soft benefits, we've got improved visibility. We've gained stakeholder buy-in as well. We've got increased customer engagements, and you guys can follow up on the rest. But on learning, really reduced on cost again. Classroom engagement has gone up. I'll share just a little bit of a story during one of the POC days. Standing in the back room at one of our sites, the class is teaching each other. Talking to the site trainer, and it's like, hey, so this simulation that we're taking, that we're basically piloting, do you guys even use this training at all? And we're like, nope. I was like, so why am I here? What's the value of this? I said, well, look at it. They're doing my job. everybody wants to learn. And so that was a pretty impactful thing for us, at least. So increased safety, obviously, muscle memory, because when you're doing things, actual tasks and actual hands motions, we've seen that actually it's improved on muscle memory. Collaboration, do you want to touch on that at all? Or?
Yeah, overall, I mean, let's reduce travel costs across the world. So we're ultimately doing that from a design side, but also feeding that into the social aspect of how do we actually just collaborate in general. Big savings around how do we actually not fly people across the world, and we can actually do those designs a bit more effectively. So there's local design aspects of going through their models, and then there's remote ones where we can actually just bring people from EPCs together with the actual engineers for the projects. So this slide is it's pretty interesting. It's just something we came up with from our side. So site feedback plus our gut feeling on how we actually use this tech, plus external research that's in the field really gives us the feeling of confidence without controlled study within our space. Now, that's not to say that we're not doing those studies and we're trying to study even further into the field on ourselves. But I think, as all of you probably know, this medium is game-changing, right? It changes how people think, how people work, and all of that good stuff. And everything that we've done so far, we've captured feedback from the sites. So it really was a success, it was a success criteria of us moving forward to say, let's just go ahead and jump on a limb and go forward. And then ultimately it turned into massive success for the long term. So you wanted to say something, sorry about that.
I just wanted, it was just the memory I had. We came up with this formula because we presented it at the Air Force, and some members of the scientific advisory board was asking us, wow, how'd you guys decide to just jump on in? And we came up with this formula, well, that's really how we got there. So, but
would love to answer questions on that if you guys have questions afterwards. We'll hope to give enough time where y'all can ask as many questions as you want, for sure.
Yeah, that formula came from us between a WhatsApp chat.
Yeah. We're not supposed to say that.
Yeah.
So transition into this. So ultimately, we wanted to say, okay, well, where did we come from? What were we doing? Why are we doing it? What were the value use cases? And then just go into explain some of the things that we've worked on so far. So
some learning simulations, right? This is where we wanted to show you guys the videos, but unfortunately, we're not allowed to show that yet. However, I tell you, if you look through the public, there actually are some videos on these images already. So you can actually see them. But BLEVI, does anybody know what BLEVI stands for? Boiling liquid, expanding vapor explosion. So that was the first one that we tackled, actually. That was one of our POCs, and now it's becoming a full simulation. But basically, we focused at that time on a water deluge system, right? Just identifying deficiencies, right? Corroded valves, leaky pipes, low pressure sprinkler systems. That's about it. And that went viral to now through a proof that we're looking at fireproofing, looking for dead legs and things like that, and preps before and preps before actually turning on the water deluge system, as well as during and then after. So. Got it.
And so around stored energy, we wanted to explain just a little bit. So we do a lot of partnership with external vendors when we're creating these things, but there's actually some stuff that we've been building internally to try to prove value over time. Stored energy was one of the first ones that we kind of jumped into internally, building that whole simulation out around lifting and rigging. So stored kinetic energy, not electrical. So ultimately, simulation is built for us to put you in a scenario, you point out deficiencies. You have a little bit of an element of time control, so you can actually slow down time and be able to play it through and mark out the things that are unsafe within the area, and then play it through and see what happens. So it's kind of an interesting thing to be able to play with time.
Sorry, Doctor Strange came out at that time, so we were inspired by that movie. We're like, oh, you should be able to control time. So.
All right, so we'll go ahead. You can hit
scaffolding is another one. Basically, inspection of deficiencies again. This is actually what we're calling just-in-time training, right? So for the folks that are actually about to get on a scaffold early that morning, just in time, get yourself a refresher. So we're doing inspections on the SRL, the fit of the SRL, followed by the scaffold. The power behind our simulation in this one is it builds the scaffold on the fly every single time with randomized deficiencies. So even if you have a desktop mode or a VR mode, no matter what, there really isn't any more cheating.
So marine berth, to kind of extend on the scaffolding aspect of where we were doing just in time, marine was more around competency training. So this one's actually got random deficiencies. I think it's like 283 random deficiencies now. We're adding like 60 more within the next release of it. Nobody's got 100%. It's all around how do I inspect both the berth side and the ship, the manifold for the marine terminal. So ultimately, we've got sites across the world that have marine terminals, and it's been flown around the world, training people.
No one, even our SME, can get 100%.
The person that actually worked with us to create this, which is also just a great story. I mean, none of this comes from just an IT side. None of this comes from just a business side. All of it is collaboration together, right? Find the actual best use case and ultimately move forward. And we'll talk about that kind of in the closing thoughts.
Cool. It's the first time we're actually allowed to talk about this, pure to high vulnerability. This was one that we really wanted to share for a long time. But basically, do you guys know when the pure to high vulnerability is? At least up north, they're calling it Saturday night, Sunday morning around 2 a.m. during extreme temperatures. So you're talking about -40. Usually there's a single operator doing the shift during that time. Fatigue usually sets in. And if you're doing mundane tasks, mostly, that's when you're most vulnerable. And so what we've been able to do is take a CAD model of the actual unit, one-to-one, literally, inside that VR simulation, and we gave the facilitator God mode to basically trigger events during real time to see how the operator responds. The objective, no one's supposed to pass. So far, it's been good. Why aren't you supposed to pass? Because they want consultation from the facilitator afterwards. The fact that you gave them the ability to trigger events during real time allowed the facilitator as well to create a series of mini tasks. So for example, when you started the operator round, did you look for your egress points first, right? If I caused a leak, how did you use full loop communication? When you looked at that heat exchanger, did you say E3A or Echo 3 alpha, right? And then when there's a vapor cloud and a possible explosion, how did you handle that? So there's a little bit more to it. We're working on the next phase of it. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I was going to say, we could probably hit on the next phase of it. Ultimately, what we're really building this into, and the inspiration for it in general, was around a fire school that the group had gone through. And while they were going through that fire school, they were performing really well. So they were like, okay, I'm putting out the fires. Everything's going amazing. And so the fire chief just said, okay, well, just literally dump more gasoline in there and make more explosions. And so we were like, oh, that sounds amazing, right? Let's actually take that concept and bring it into the training world and give the facilitator the ability to actually fire off events in different areas. So the next phase of this is going to be that whole unit with random events and controlled events from a facilitator anywhere within the unit. Anything from leaks to vapor clouds to pools to wind direction, wind speed, all that good stuff.
So it's a level editor, pretty much.
Yep. Something we were wanting to hit on a little bit, just to show pictures of some of the design stuff. So this is just a picture of some of the augmented reality design things we're working on. Also, from the virtual reality perspective, it's actually taken off quite a bit, being able to have that remote aspect of it. But being able to bring your actual models into the field has been pretty massive for us. Along with actually having it remote whenever you want to do the inspections and you're not anywhere near the field, or say you're a completely green field, you don't have anything. It's been pretty successful for us.
So simulations, pilots, we started collecting some comments. I'll just touch up on a few of them. The first one, so I have ADD, paying attention right. So I want to before I get to that comment, during the pilot again, Bellevue was the one. Right. Went up to one of the sites. Site manager's like, okay, great. My guys want to see it. Show me the desktop version and the VR version. Desktop version, cool. VR version, showing it. One guy's tapping my shoulder. He's like, I got to tell you something. Right? I took your desktop version. Okay. Took your VR version. Hey, man, I have ADD. It's a hard time paying attention, but when you put on the headset on me, up, down, left, right, no matter wherever I look, you got me to pay attention. I was immersed. That hit home for us. We're like, oh, wow. Didn't even think about that, you know? We knew about the classroom engagement. We knew about the younger workforce embracing this type of technology. but we didn't know it would hit on that aspect as well. I like this other one. A photo's worth 1,000 words. Video's worth 1,000 photos. We think that VR is worth 1,000 videos. So take an entire simulation. It's going to improve on your training time. Or reduce your training time, I'm sorry.
So I mean, there's other ones on here. I'll hit on the one around the design aspect. So ultimately, when we first came into this, we were just proof of concepting it and ultimately putting people in their design models prior to them even having the product out in the field. And this one guy came in during the pre 30%. Post 30%. He was just done with his 30% review the day before and came in and he was like, all right, so I'm going to take a look at this. Really skeptical at first. Ultimately put the headset on and was like, oh my gosh, this is changed my world. That's actually where the other quote comes from. But the bottom right one is the one I want to focus on. He put the headset on and about 5 minutes into it, he goes, why is there a fire monitor on the opposite side of a ditch? And there's no grading over to that fire monitor, or not fire monitor, fire extinguisher, fire hydrant for this particular area. It was literally a ditch, and the fire hydrant was facing this way, and you were in a ditch. So if any crew came to hook that up, they'd have to actually erect a scaffold or put a couple of pallets over the top of it and move it across. He was like, I literally just sat through multiple days of my 30% review and didn't find this, and in 5 minutes I found it within VR. And I go, why is that? Ultimately, at the end of the day, right, there's a presence aspect of this. So you feel like you're more aware of that environment and you're more engaged into it. So you're going to put more of yourself into the environment is the best way to put it. So that's kind of it really allowed them to allowed additional senses to be utilized is the way we kind of coin it.
Was that the guy you high-fived in VR?
Yeah, and then we high-fived in VR from remote.
So
ultimately, we kind of talked about where we came from, what we were doing, what's the value cases, showed you some of the things. We really didn't talk to you about where it came from at the very, very beginning. And this is kind of some of the most impactful stuff is the grassroots parts of it. It really started around passion. And M hit on that at the very beginning is passion has driven this whole thing. What can we do with this technology to be able to actually help the business units and help industry in general? So it started with, I actually had a couple of, I bought a DK1 as a personal thing way back in the day, and I said, oh my gosh, there's value within the business line. So we took some of our first models of our original campus into VR, and then ultimately ended up meeting up with guys like him in the research area, and it just started exploding. So I know he can definitely talk through all that.
Yeah. At that time, Kyle had DK1, I had the Google Glass. We're at an IT fair in another corner and walked by, and we're like, what is that? And he's like, what is that? And, I'll trade you. So that's how we got to meet each other. But from the research side, we focused on, well, what is the issue? And at that time, we started realizing there's a bit of a training issue in terms of memory retention and recall and the lack of engagement. So we started focusing on just some of the SMEs, and in this case, it was the process engineer, and he basically told us, hey, man, I fly these guys out all the time, schedule, right, for basically a Bolivia inspection. And so, but for some reason, after I turn on the water deluge system, I show them everything, we walk through it, we go through the decks, all this, but they still keep missing it. So can we do something? Just something small, proof of concept, right? So that was that Bolivia pilot. That took off. I remember when the SME put on the headset, and he was just looking up, he was like, oh, this is almost like the same height as what I see in actual real life. Okay, well, if you gave this to me a little bit earlier, I wouldn't have scheduled my next training course overseas. But anyways, that's how it got started. It started getting communications. But from there, we took that feedback. We went to a local site, so obviously make sure we can drive there. It's just to reduce the time, right? Presented it to the sites, and that's where we got the anecdotal comment. And from there, we started piloting. Can you go on the next slide for me? Captured feedback, right? So notice the engagement went up. The experience was great. Experience. It's the age of experience, y'all, right? When you go to a restaurant, don't you check your Yelp reviews? When you buy something on Amazon, don't you check your user reviews? People are going to talk about the simulations that you build. If they memorize, if they have a good time, they're going to talk about it. They're going to ask their managers and bring it back. So we focused on the experience as well, and we made sure that everybody was excited about it. We not only did not just brought over just work simulations or just learning simulations, we brought some other fun stuff, right? Hey, Google Earth is here. Try this out. Be Superman, right? Walk the plank. Have you guys tried walk the plank before?
Of course.
Yeah, so I mean, that's gone viral as well. Actually, we have a booth at Gas Tech right now where we're showing off walk the plank as well. Because really, in a nutshell, in a matter of a minute or two, they can make you feel like you're somewhere else, even though you know you're standing on the floor, right? And it can drive in consequence that fast. Let the business take it from there and come back and say, I got a great idea. It could be possibly working at heights. So, from there we shared. So we use videos, communications. We actually we had some guys that can edit some videos. And so we have this thing what we call POC Quick Bite. And so we talked about Bellevue, but in a matter of like 2-3 minutes, what is it? Why are you doing it? And why and how is it valuable, right? And then from there, we use internal articles, newsletters, social media. We have Yammer, digital signage all over campus as well and over at those sites. And we use the newsletters as well. And then that's where we started doing IT fairs, just internal IT fairs on a roadshow, having a booth set up. When we did have that booth set up, though, we did keep in mind, okay, well, we were showing Bellevue. Bellevue is about 7 to 10 minute long simulation. So we also show walk the plank as well because we know not everybody at IT fairs are going to understand about the business side. So we wanted to increase the excitement as well. We collected additional use cases. So walk the plank brought a scaffold, and it just went off from there. Commitment, right? So you want to talk about that commitment? That's your side.
Yeah, I mean, end of the day, so where it came from, right? We gained all this buy-in, and it made it a lot less hard to have commitment for a business unit to be created or an IT unit to be created. I'll tell you that it was still a long journey from there to actually creating a whole service line to be able to actually help out the business units. But when you have business demand actually coming towards you and saying we need this, it makes it a lot easier to actually open up the floodgates from an IT side and actually help them. So again, business drive the opposite side. Every single thing that we go into, you always are going to have a subject matter expert. There's no way that we're going to build something that doesn't make sense for the business unit. And then, what we're doing now is we're really trying to set the precedents for how we actually build these things into the future. We've got a team of about 9 people internally, ultimately working on what are those standard tools to be able to build out, how do we do them in the future, building things to prove them out, and then working with vendors to collaborating together. We've kind of dug deep into this area, and ultimately we're deploying out to sites across the globe and in all spaces. So,
Kyle's team also manages. What are you talking about? The deployments and the milestones.
Deployment milestones, all that good stuff. So I know we got 8 minutes left, and we'd love to let people ask questions if they can. So closing thoughts, really. Our workforce is getting more sophisticated, right? They're changing. They need technology in front of them to be able to learn better. So we have to be able to adjust as quick as we possibly can. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. Get those get the tools into their hands as quickly as possible. So let them proof of concept it, and then quickly, rapidly turn it into an actual product as fast as you possibly can. So immersive tech in general, you guys know this part, shorter time to competency, higher retention rates whenever you use it, all of that good stuff, reduced travel costs. I want to hit on the thing again around passion. Passion drives literally all of this. It's going to continue to drive it into the future. If you have passionate people that want to work within this space and know what we can do with it, then you're going to have success. Continue after all the way into the future, right? So start small, think bigger. I mean, there might not be a lot of people starting right now. You're probably already in the phase of it. But if you aren't, start now. Find those passionate people. Grow small bits at a time, and ultimately make sure that you collaborate. So everything that we're trying to do, we're trying to move into the more open space of how do we actually help the industry grow. With that, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep improving on it and iterate. So this is our contact info. Reach out to us if you want to. It's not our nice little logo that we built internally. We like it a lot. It's actually semi-based off of me putting my daughter into VR for the first time and the look on her face when she actually saw it. Yeah, so it's a loose tie to it. Love the logo.
And you know why we put Kyle's name above, right? Because you're probably going to email him first.
It's going to be easier to email me first than email him. Yeah.
Kyle gets all the emails.
Opposite chronological order. Yep. So any questions?
Hi, Paul Griffith from Procter & Gamble. Curious, have you created any like multiplayer VR experiences where you have 5 or 6 people, and then how did you do that technically?
Yeah. So there's been a couple. There's been some marine ones around, like not the marine berth one, but actually marine host changeout operation for that. So that's actually just using not platforms. Like we're building from the ground up there with third parties. I think Photon was the one that we used for there. If you're interested in like the low level part of it, is Photon was the communication platform between those two. But in the design phase, we're using platforms that actually automatically have that capability built in. And then other simulations, we would build from the ground up. It would be great if there was an agnostic multiplayer tool. And we've looked at a couple, but we're looking for something to be a little bit more open.
Giselle Gamble with Exxon Corporation. I'm curious about the scalability of your efforts, and I'm wondering, is there more than one branch of these studios, or are you guys it?
So like, where do we see growth? Is that the kind of question? Yeah. So we're planning for growth. That's the whole plan, is to take this immersive area and spread it out. We ultimately desire at the end of the day, right, to try to broaden it out as much as you can to each of the individual companies and the IT areas that support them. But that's going to take a long time. I don't know if that answered your question.
But it's us right now managing it, managing the demands. Demand has ramped up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So you know how it works. So we are looking for more funding and more support, while at the
More
same
talent.
time, it's looking for the right talent as well. So our mindset has been acting like a startup actually too.
Yeah.
So we have a digital garage to almost have a showcase, show floor, and then from there that commitment helps us as well. So it's almost like a down payment, for buy-in.
A startup that's just a little bit harder to fail.
Yeah, we're a heavily funded startup.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. No worries.
Cool.
Well, we'll be out there asking the questions again.